Hey everyone, it's Astral ASMR here, and I thought I would try something different for this video. This is the first time I'm doing talking or a voiceover for an art video. I don't particularly like talking while I'm drawing. I find it a bit distracting, but I thought because this video is such a long video, some people might prefer to see a shorter version, which is what this one is, sped up, so that it's much shorter than the original 1 hour and 43 minutes. But also anyone who finds that original video was a little bit too quiet. The pens that I was using don't make a lot of noise anyway, and they're quite quiet, and even the noises that they do make, my mic's probably not entirely sensitive enough to pick up all of it, so and that's compared to like the usual markers I've been usually using in some of the doodle videos. So this one was probably a bit quieter than some of my other drawing videos, so I thought I would try and sort of offer an alternative version of that video with soft talking over the top of it. So I'd be interested to hear what people think. If you'd like more art videos with soft talking over the top, as opposed to just without, just plain sounds. Don't think I would do it for every video. I don't think I would do it for the doodle ones, but for ones like this, where I think there's actually something I can talk about. You know, if people like this kind of format with talking and the sounds, let me know. And if I do another art video that's similar to this, where it's either very long or it's a little too quiet, I will definitely consider doing audio and speaking over that, if that's what people like. So this artwork, if you've read the description, was something I drew for Mother's Day. I often, well, for family and friends, I draw little, I'll do little drawings either as a card or as a part of the gift. For my mum, I bought her a ticket for something, but it was just like a, like an online ticket, so I didn't really have anything to physically give her on the day. So I thought a little artwork to go along with her card would be nice. And she is a huge fan of elephants, has quite a soft spot for them. She does a lot of photography as a hobby, and she has been overseas a few times to photograph elephants, so she's very keen. Oh, and the other thing was the other thing she does that when she photographs is she's discovered like festivals. I don't want to say like cosplay conventions, because they're not. It's not so much that, it's more like festivals for people who do reenactments and more historical based cosplay. So she likes going to those, and you'll see all the people in their armour, all dressed up like Vikings, or different kinds of time periods and stuff. It's basically just a big mishmash of all different time periods and stuff, and there's some fantasy. Yeah, there are some more fantasy elements to it, definitely. But, more historical, less pop culture stuff. I'm trying to think what the festival's called in particular. There's one that she likes to go to. But she basically goes to those for taking photographs of the costumes. And while she was at one of these festivals, she really started to get into steampunk. Because of all the very beautiful costumes a lot of them wear. And all the corsets and dresses and all the like. So I thought I would indulge in a little bit of steampunk of my own for this drawing and incorporate two things that she was quite fond of. So yeah. So she was quite happy to receive this. Added it to a little collection that's accumulated over time from drawings and such that I've done for Christmases, birthdays, Mother's Days and the like. I'm sorry if anyone, maybe it won't be so obvious in this video. You might have noticed it more if you watch the original version without any talking. If you heard any birds in the background going absolutely crazy, I apologize. I always record my videos very late at night because I live in a very noisy area. And it's usually silent, mostly. Around 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning are the best sort of hours I've found to record. I have never, and I stay up a lot very late, not just for recording the videos. I have some terrible university student habits of leaving things up to the last minute, but I have never heard the birds go as absolutely insane as they did while I was recording that video. I actually had to stop on 2 separate occasions. I don't know if anyone who watched the original video noticed, but there's a couple of points in time where I just put down my pen and stopped for a second, and that was just because I had to put down my pen and stop recording. Well, I still recorded, I edited it out, but I just couldn't use it. It was so incredibly loud, and I have never heard anything like that before. So I have no idea what was going on, but it was terrible timing. So I hope that wasn't too distracting or too obvious, although now that I've pointed it out, I'm sure it probably is. So that's the birds. The joys of living near the Australian bush. So, this particular drawing I thought would be good to talk over because it's actually a pretty good example of something that's more typically my style of how I would usually draw. Not that I don't like doodling, I do like the doodle drawings, but they're very simple and, relaxing, very easy to draw type thing. This kind of style and the process I use in this is much closer to how I would typically go about drawing something. Not that I don't use different mediums or different styles. I do like to be diverse, but this is probably what's most natural for me. So basically my process is I will do some Googling first, depending what I'm trying to draw. So in this case I first looked up a couple of different pictures of elephants. I use a few different references. I don't like tracing. Tracing can get you... it can make you lazy if you rely on tracing too much. You know. And sometimes it just won't look right, and it can be very obvious if you trace. But using reference images is good, and if you use reference images enough, and this is what happens with actual good artists who are much more experienced than myself. Actual artists will build up like basically like a mental reference library in their head. You know, if you draw enough of certain types of things from reference images, you will eventually be able to draw something just off the top of your head. I can't do that. I don't have anywhere near the level of skill or experience to do that, so I'm still very reliant on source images. So I used a couple for this one. I had an elephant that was standing in a pose that I quite liked, but its head was turned or something and its trunk was down, and I don't know if this is a common belief or if it's something my mum's picked up somewhere, or if it's just something she personally believes. I'm not sure where she got this from, but she sort of always says or believes that a elephant with its trunk raised is good luck. So I don't know if anyone else has heard that before, or if that's just something she's come up with or picked up somewhere. I'd be interested to know if anyone else has heard that. Maybe it's an aesthetic thing as well, and just it looks nicer composition wise. So I had to find a different photo of an elephant with its trunk raised and drew on that to get the head. So I basically just drew an elephant, and then I looked up pictures of an elephant's skeleton, which seems like a weird thing to do, but because I wanted to make it steampunky, I wanted to add like joints and sort of make it look like a machine, or essentially a robot. And I wanted to actually put those joints in the right places. So I did look up where the joints and such on the skeletal system of an elephant is. I'd actually say that looking up the skeletal structure of things and actually understanding how they work makes drawing things, especially animals like dogs and cats. If anyone's ever tried to draw their back legs before and found it they just can't quite get the look right, if you actually understand how the skeleton works, I found that makes it easier, especially when you're trying to draw them in different poses, or in the middle of walking, or doing something like that. So that was part of my process, was looking up how can I break down this shape into blockier, simple shapes. You know, where's the leg, the different segments of the leg, and just sort of made it more blocky, less organic, more mechanical. And then of course I did a lot of research, searches for reference images of people who've done other steampunk type work, and there's so many amazing artists out there who can just do incredible stuff with their steampunk style in their artwork, and like I feel so inadequate when I look at it. I'm just like, wow, I could never draw anything like that. Some of them, the detail in like the wires and the machinery and the cogs, it's just so intensely detailed. I'm just like, that, I could not do that. So yeah, a lot of stuff, if you ever look it up and find some good artists, just blow you away. So I kind of looked at that, felt a little bit put off for a while. I was just like, oh, I can't do that. But then I got back to it. And so I sort of drew on bits and pieces that I saw. Nothing exactly, because, you know, trying to copy bits and pieces from someone else's work and then trying to adapt that to your own style can look out of place and disjointed, and worst case scenario, someone could be like, well, that's straight up copying, and you'd hate to get in trouble for that. So yeah, just looking for inspiration, different types of cogs, different types of machinery, that kind of thing. And so I do all that first in pencil. And then I get the fine line pens that you can see. There's a set of pens there that go from 0.8, which is a bit larger than what your standard writing pen would be. A lot of standard writing pens are about 0.7 or 0.5. I personally prefer 0.5 because I have tiny writing. So 0.8 is a bit larger, a bit thicker. I don't think I used it at all in this drawing because the lines were all too fine. The next size down is 0.5. Then I have a 0.3, a 0.2, a 0.1, and a 0.05, which is very fine. I actually use it in this drawing a lot for the fine lines and sort of shadows and cross-hatching and details. Some of it you probably can't even see while it's sitting down on the table. At the end of the video, when I lift the finished drawing up, you might be able to see it better. But some of that stuff is very fine, and I don't think it would show up very well from the way the camera's just set up. So yes, I draw in all the lines. I usually, depending on how fine an artwork it is and how detailed, I'll pick a size that I think is appropriate for the outline. I'm not sure what I used here. It was probably a 0.3 possibly, and I put down all the outlines, all the heavy lines first. Could have been a 0.5, and that'll be the heaviest, boldest lines. And then as things get smaller or more detailed, I work my way down from whatever that pen size was to something smaller. And then I try to reserve the smallest one for all the fine detail. So, yeah. Typically I try to be as neat as possible when going over my pencil lines. I was a bit messy with this one, also because some of the steampunk stuff I put in cogs and then I changed them later because I didn't like the look, or they moved around slightly, or they were just a little difficult to go back over with the pen. I try to be as neat as possible so I don't have to use an eraser. In this video I did, because I was a bit too messy and the lines were a bit too obvious. If you don't use the right kind of eraser, which you might actually notice I changed eraser from the one I started with at first, and if you erase too much you can damage the paper, and this can be particularly bad if you're using like a water-based type paint or something like what I was using, because you can get bleeding essentially, where it will the fibers that you've damaged or exposed with the rubber will basically soak up more of the water or the paint that you don't really want it to, and you can end up with some very furry, blurry looking lines. So I usually try to avoid it if I can. That wasn't the case with this video, and I also kind of thought that the rubbing sounds would add something to the video, just because the rest of the video was so quiet. So yeah, it didn't do anything too much to this particular drawing, thankfully. Then I basically after that, what I use for colour is very dependent on what I'm drawing, how big I'm drawing as well, and how detailed. I typically like gouache, watercolour and watercolour pencils, ink, and in this particular video I'm using Derwent, I think, Inktense pencils, and they're basically the same premise as a watercolour pencil except ink. So yeah, what I use is very dependent on what I'm drawing, as well as the kind of colour palette I need. Sometimes I just simply don't have all the colours I need in one particular set. I have a limited set of gouache, but quite a large set of watercolour, so I can usually find something close to what I need, and also quite a few watercolour pencils. And so I'll just start layering in the colour. I'm adding shadows in, try and make it not look too flat. The way I'm using these Inktense pencils is really probably not how you're supposed to use them. I am sure if there's any art person watching this who actually saw me using that rather expensive set of pencils like that, they would probably be mortified. Actually, they're not even really my pencils. They're shared pencils that I've borrowed from someone. No, they know I have them. Basically, they bought these pencils because, well, I told them about them because I used them in a class, and I came home and I was like, oh my god, you have to see these pencils. They have like amazing colours and they're really nice to work with. And then they went out and bought some, and then I was rather jealous. But they were like, yeah, you can borrow them, we can share them. And then they used them probably once, never used the pencils again. So I have, borrowed them for an extended period of time. An undisclosed extended period of time. One day they might get them back. Certainly not in the same condition that they lent them to me. And certainly not if I keep using them like that. But yeah, it's just this particular drawing was so fine and small with the little detailed areas that it was just colouring in. It wouldn't have worked very well, and I kind of prefer just dabbing a little bit on the brush and just painting it on directly like that. So it is certainly an unorthodox way of using, or even watercolor pencils, using them like that. Probably not the best thing for the pencils themselves, but it's a habit I kind of developed at some point. I'm not sure when, but I started doing it and it stuck. Haven't been able to stop myself from doing it. It's sort of natural, I guess, for me now, as part of just the way I paint things. Mind you, that is only when I'm using watercolor or Inktense pencils. Gouache or watercolor on the other hand, different technique again altogether. Probably also wrong though. I've never actually had someone formally teach me how to use any art stuff. It's mostly been rather intuitive for me and a lot of trial and error. So yeah, which is sad because I've done several years of art in school and I had an art scholarship but didn't learn a thing. I think teachers kind of took for granted that I could kind of already draw, and they just left me to my own devices, which in some ways was good because I guess I was trusted to just go off and do whatever it was I wanted to draw and it would probably turn out alright. So it was a lot of freedom in that way, but in other ways I think it left some rather large holes in my knowledge and a lot of deficiencies where I just haven't been taught the right way to do something. And I know there's always going to be someone who says, oh, there doesn't have to be a right way to do it, but it's like, yeah, sometimes you just want to achieve a certain effect and there's a technical skill to approaching it, and if you're clever enough you'll figure it out yourself, but it can really help to have someone who is there who can sort of impart that knowledge to you and sort of help you achieve a certain desired look. So yeah, I probably have quite a few bad habits in the way that I paint and draw that I have picked up I do enjoy my art though, even if there's plenty of room for improvement. If anyone's wondering who has watched some of my other videos and noticed that I usually, or not usually, lately have been wearing gloves, and in this video I am not. It's basically eczema, and eczema isn't a particularly serious or bad thing, and it can usually be treated quite easily with creams and the like. But what I get is like a snowball effect where I'll get eczema and then I'll get it again before it heals, and then before it heals again it'll come back, and it just keeps getting progressively worse because it doesn't heal properly the first time, so it escalates to something that's quite not nice to look at. Nothing I can't live with or handle. It's not, debilitating, but it's not pretty. And even in this video, you can't see it. Combination of how the camera's set up, and also I'm wearing makeup on the back of my hands. Not the front though, not my palms. I didn't want to risk getting makeup onto the paper, but on the back of my hands. It finally is healing, but because of that whole getting worse before it gets better over and over again, it's left like scarring essentially, and that sort of is taking a lot longer to heal. And recently it just sort of flared up again, so it's come back, so future videos will probably have gloves again. But it's actually much worse on the undersides, on the palms of my hand, which you also can't see in this video. So that's kind of why I've been wearing the gloves. Although I do actually don't mind wearing them in my doodling videos, simply because some people seem to enjoy the sounds. And I mean, even if my hands get better, I am happy to keep wearing the leather gloves if people are enjoying the sounds. So I'm definitely keen for that. It's just this particular drawing being so fine and detailed, and using those particular types of pens and painting like that, it was just too fiddly and too detailed for me to do that in gloves, which were just too restrictive. And especially because those gloves are actually a little bit too small for me, so they can be a little bit restrictive because of that. So that didn't make them a very good choice for this video. I dug up some fingerless gloves, which I don't mind fingerless gloves. Used to wear them a lot in high school. Had to match the school uniform, of course. And I thought I still had them. They were a rather acceptable navy blue. And then I couldn't find them anywhere. So instead I found these horrific looking rainbow ones. And no. That was my reaction, was I am not wearing those. I don't even know where they came from. So I have a suspicion they've been passed on to me by, I don't know, a friend or a family member who didn't want them either, because they're definitely not something I ever bought. So I opted to just go for a bit of makeup and do it without the gloves. So that's basically my ramble for this video. I guess I think I've run out of things to talk about. I'm not usually one for long rambly talks, which, you know, like I said, I wouldn't do this for every art video. I couldn't even come up with enough content to talk about. But just for this particular one, there were just a few things I could talk about, and hopefully it was semi-interesting, or at the very least relaxing for you to listen to. So, yeah, let me know what you think. Let me know what your opinions are on the gloves. I mean, I will be wearing them if I need to, but when my hands are better and I don't need to, I would like to know if people want me to wear them anyway. For the sounds, I'm happy to, for certain types of drawing videos. Let me know if you're interested in having more videos where I do like a non-talking version and a talking version. Let me know if you're interested in hearing more art-related stuff, or hearing me talk about more art-related stuff. So, let me know what you think. Also let me know if preference for soft-spoken or whispering. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got something positive from it, whether it was tingles, relaxation, or just some interesting but useless piece of trivia about myself. And I'll see you next time. Bye.